One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give somebody who's waiting for their kingdom spouse that I personally did that I think saved me so much turmoil and made the journey actually more exciting, and I think set me up for success for when we were actually finally together, was that whenever I received the word from the Lord who my kingdom spouse was, when I was told by the Lord, you're getting married soon, when all the confirmations were coming, when I am staring at the back of his head in church, when I'm like, I did not envision what our life was going to be like. No, I did not. And I can say that I think that's probably a hard one for a lot of people to even think why would you not just dream and scheme and think about how wonderful it would be. Well, the reason I didn't is because I did not want to get ahead of the Lord. Also, I did not want to create a false reality in my mind and a false expectation that he would possibly not live up to. So I hope that makes sense to some people. But if you think about it, I think one of the biggest traps that people get into when you are working with the Lord in things, and especially when it comes to relationships, ones you have not been in yet, this is literally a dream that you know is going to come to pass because God told you it would, but actually not thinking about anything beyond actually getting to being together and really almost taking it day by day. And this does take a lot of self-control. This takes a lot of mental and emotional maturity, spiritual maturity. But I think it's a huge, huge key to being successful, to getting there. And once you're in there, actually thriving in the relationship. Because if you know who your kingdom spouse is and you're waiting to be with them, and you are thinking about what it's going to be like to be married, what they're going to be like, what all these situations, what you're going to name your kids, how many kids you're going to have, all of these things that you are putting in your own mind. You're stepping outside of just God's thoughts in those moments and his instruction, and now you are planning this future with somebody that you actually don't really know yet. So that can be a recipe for disaster. It may work okay for some people, but I did not do that. And ours has worked out really well. So I feel like it is actually a key that a lot of people probably need to know about. And that probably seems crazy to a lot of people. How did you not envision what that would be like? How did you not, imagine you with him? How did you not think of all of these things? Imagine your kids, think of names and all of these things. It was to protect us, and it was to preserve us, and it was to allow us to have an authentic relationship. Because a lot of times where we get in trouble just in life is we put our own expectations on people. So we have an expectation in our mind of our friends, of our family members, of our spouses, and because we have already lived out scenarios of how we want them to react. And when we don't get that reaction, obviously that can leave you very upset. But if you think about it, it's like, well, that was my expectation that I put on things because I had already moved ahead and I already thought, this is how I would like this to work out. I want to say this, I want him to say that, and it goes back and forth. And I think one of the biggest keys to really being successful in this is when you are walking with the Lord and you are walking out his plan, and you're involving him in every step of the way, and you're not speaking unless he tells you to, you're not moving unless he says go, not getting ahead of yourself, even in your own imagination. I think is so important, because otherwise I feel like you're setting yourself up for a lot of letdown, because at the end of the day, you don't actually know how that person's going to respond. You don't know the situations that are going to come up once you're together. You don't know really what that's going to look like. And so in your mind, if you paint this picture perfect image of what that union will be, of what those kiddos are going to look like, what their names are going to be, you know, where you want to live, you know, how you want everything, you know, your wedding and all these things, it's like you're not leaving any room for them, because that's all happening in your mind and in your imagination. And it's wonderful to dream, and it's great to have goals and expectations. But I think when it comes to your kingdom spouse, so this is somebody you already know, I'm going to marry them, but I don't really know them. I just know who they are. It can really lead to a lot of trouble, because had I done that, I can honestly say, I think it would have been disastrous. One of the drawbacks of that was when it did come time for us to start planning our wedding, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted. But we were able to figure that out together. So it actually wasn't a bad thing. And we completely planned our wedding from beginning to end together. And there was a lot of times in that part of our relationship and our journey where I would just say, I have absolutely no clue what I want. I'm so sorry. Can you make that choice for me? Because for us, we had a lot going on. I mean, we were merging a family. So we were, you know, we had two kids that we were, you know, that we were all becoming a family. And their feelings were so important, and their role in everything to us was so important, because we wanted to do things. We want everybody to be happy. Nobody should lose in a kingdom relationship, because God chose you for that person for a reason. And so if they have kids, God chose you for those kids as well. And so it was all really important. And, you know, we were able to work together to make what we wanted happen. And I think that because I didn't have some prior expectation, because you don't know what finances are going to look like. You don't know what the actual relationship between you guys is going to look like, because you haven't been in it before. And so it's just kind of like, I feel like a lot of fights in relationships come from expectations that one person had and the other person doesn't know about it. And so they let you down because they didn't know that there was an expectation that was up here, that you had already had a preconceived notion of how things should work out. And so that can cause a lot of strain on a relationship, that can cause a lot of problems in a relationship, and just basically a lot of misunderstandings. So something that I did was I actually never envisioned us actually being together. I know it sounds so crazy, but I didn't. I remember there was one time we were sitting in church, and I kind of looked at the back of his head and I thought, Lord, somehow, one day we're going to be like super in love and doing this thing. And I don't know how, but you do. And I trust you. And that was like the closest I ever came to it. I never planned out our kids' names. I felt God had given me divine information about the genders of our kids and the number of our kids, but he gave that to me. And so in that moment, I prayed into that. So when he would give me information, I would pray into it. And some of those things we're still kind of seeing how all of that is going to shake out. And it's really fun to kind of be in that part of your journey. But, you know, I allowed God to really create our relationship. And I gave my spouse and myself the ability to just come together organically. And there was no expectation on him. There was no how things should go, you know, or how we were going to be, or, you know, he was going to, you know, the ways he was going to treat me and how I was going to treat him back. I did start to know how I would treat him because God had showed me that. You know, I had asked him, you know, what does he need from me, Lord? You know, and God said, he needs you to be yes and amen. He's been told no enough. And so it was little things like that, and God had told me to be patient with him. And God had told me, many things that I like held on to that really helped me get to that finish line. But I never imagined what that would look like. I never imagined our wedding day. I never imagined us having kids. I never imagined us at our house together. I never imagined us going on a date. I didn't do any of that. Even when I had finally gotten the invitation to the barbecue, I did not imagine what that day would look like. I prepared for that day though. So I remember, just in case he decided to take me home, take me, maybe he would want to take me home. I don't know. So I made sure my house was spotless, I made sure I was prepared mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically for what we were doing. I had been preparing for that for months. And that's a whole other part of it. But I never actually created a false reality in my mind of what I thought it should be and what it should look like and what I would have liked to have happened. Because I never wanted to put the cart before the horse. I didn't want to get caught up in my head and get ahead of God accidentally, because I imagined something being a certain way. I literally just stayed in the moment and I went day by day with the Lord. And I think if there's any takeaway in that, I think that is very valuable. I think it could benefit a lot of people that are in that season right now, of really taking that control of your mind, of your will, and of your emotions, and being like, I'm going to stay right where you're at, Lord, and I'm not going to go ahead. I'm going to stay right here with you. And it takes a lot of self-control and willpower, I think, to really kind of go there. But once you're there, it's very easy. Because if you don't know what it looks like, because you can't, why create it? And so in those situations, I wanted what God wanted for us. I wanted the organic thing. I wanted the real, true experience. And I wanted to get to know him. And I wanted to find out what things would look like in real time. And I knew that anything I could think up would never even remotely come close to what God had designed. So why try? I mean, I had no idea what we would be like together in a relationship. I just knew that God was not going to give me something that was my heart's desire and it not be wonderful. And it's not to say that, in relationships you don't have ups and downs, because you do. We all know that. But the overall of the thing, it is absolutely amazing and it's beautiful, right? So that is one of the biggest things that I could tell people, is the way you don't get ahead of God is you don't think about it. You don't imagine it. You don't envision it. You just go day by day with the Lord. You take the information that he gives you and you pray into it, and you pray about it, and you keep it, and you hide it in your heart, and you put it in your back pocket, and it's going to help you to catapult you forward as you keep going. And it's going to help you once you're in that relationship with that person. But to imagine and set up these expectations of, I said this, and then he's going to say this, and then we're going to get married here. My dress is going to look this way, and we're going to have this many kids, and we're going to name them this. And it's like, when that doesn't happen, because that's not what ends up happening, there's a very high likelihood that you would feel let down and that you would feel like, well, this isn't right. And so one of the things I did is I just didn't go there. I felt like also I didn't want to envision anything like physical between us, because I didn't want to lust. So I didn't go there either, even though I already knew I was so attracted to him, but I didn't go there. And so, and I think as Christians, that's something very important, because you don't, even though this is already your kingdom spouse, there's still a line that you kind of have to walk. Because if you awaken love early, what good does that do you? What are you going to be left with? Because you also still have to make it to the finish line. So you still have to date, get engaged, and get married. And if you are awakening love in your mind about that person, that could make it really hard to get to that finish line. And so keeping all of your thoughts and your emotions in check, I think, is so crucial to you being successful and getting to your kingdom spouse and getting to the altar. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I just want to say thank you to everybody who is newly subscribed to our channel. It's really growing, guys. Thank you for everybody that's sharing our videos and liking them and commenting. We love them all. And we just appreciate you guys. And we will talk to you soon. Bye.